You are listening to the ReRACEables podcast. Welcome to the ReRACEables podcast. I'm your host, Tom. I am joined tonight by my dear friends, Josh and Lizzy.
Hey,
Hello.
We are here. We have just seen episodes 6 and 7 of The Amazing Race, season 32. And how did you guys like having back-to-back episodes? Let's start there.
I loved it. That's how I usually watch The Amazing Race anyway. All the seasons I've been binging, it's hard to watch just one. So it's nice that CBS is on my level.
yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It's always fun to have a 2 hour special of The Amazing Race, especially when last episode I was a little frustrated that Kaylin and Haley didn't go home.
We'll get there. We'll get
We'll
there.
get there. So the race begins in Berlin, and they're in this mini disco, teledisco phone booth. I don't really know what it is, but it seemed like it was a unique kind of a cultural thing.
When we can't go to clubs post COVID, maybe a teledisco is going to be our new quarantined club.
That's true. You can't really fit more than like 4 people in there. So if you want to go out but still be safe, I don't know. You might be onto something there.
I did like how it seemed that the teams were having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
It looked like they kind of got into that whole situation and realized, what the hell is this? And it just kind of went for it. And that was kind of, we've talked about on this podcast different questions and different pieces of different challenges or whatnot, or legs of the race. And we've asked, how much can you really enjoy? And it looked like in that teledisco that they were able to enjoy it. It was not a break from the race because they were looking to probably get out of there, but it looked like they had smiles on their face. They were like, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? And they actually got to enjoy it.
I feel like on recent seasons of The Amazing Race, they've really leaned into the enjoy your experience, at least for a little bit, wherever you are. You'll see them now like going into museums, and it's like you have to stop and appreciate everything before you'll get your clue. And it really just kind of slows you down and makes you look around and see where you're at. And so I like that The Amazing Race has kind of carved that into the race a little bit more.
Yeah, because it's hard. In my, leading up to this, watching the first 10 seasons, there was only really one moment that stood out where a team literally put the brakes on, stopped, admired what they were looking at, and appreciated that moment. And that really stood out because I just feel that it's probably very difficult to run in and hurry, stop, hurry, stop, and really try to appreciate what you're seeing, or the landscape, or if you're in a museum or a piece of art or whatever it is. But it's nice to see them having some fun on the race for sure. So then from there they get to the roadblock where they had to go up into the building. They had to put on all the equipment and get in the harness, and they had to walk down the side of the building. And there were some letters that were scrambled and blinking, and they had to try to unscramble that into a word to move forward. And if they couldn't, they had to go back up and do it all over again. In general, who do you think would have done that? And do you think that would have been, what do you think would have been difficult about that particular roadblock?
Between Josh and I, who would have done it?
Yeah.
I feel like we usually talk about this, but I don't know if we did. I'm fine with the heights thing, but I think Josh would have been better at unscrambling the letters.
Yeah, the
So
letters were hard though. Even I don't know if I would have gotten it. And when we look back on the episode, like there was only 2 people who really got it. Everybody else just helped the others.
To me, that challenge seemed like a lot of fun, a unique experience. How much do you really get to walk down the sides of buildings and try to play word jumbles? Probably not that often, but don't know, maybe I felt like I wanted more out of that. Like I wanted the building to be taller, or I wanted more of a free fall. I feel like that was a missed opportunity a little bit.
Yeah,
Go
15
ahead.
flights though, to have to go like run up those stairs after missing it once. That's just, I mean, having to do it twice, I would have been collapsed on the floor. So yeah, I think especially in other seasons, we've seen them have to rappel down. That's the challenge, and you get to the bottom, you get the clue. So by adding that on top of having to redo it, on top of all of the factors, I think that it actually was a pretty good challenge.
We disagree there, but it seems like the big
Sauerkraut.
takeaway ultimately.
Sauerkraut.
Well, I would have been money at that. I'm really good for whatever reason at word jumbles and things like that. Plus, you're in Germany, so how hard could they make it? Although they did make we'll get to the detour in a few minutes, but how many different words could it possibly be? I mean, Kaylin and Haley, how many times do you have to do it to finally I don't know. I was just kind of disappointed in people and their inability to kind of crack that challenge.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of, I'm sure this is your next point, but reliance on the allyship. I think that if all of those people had to have done it by themselves with no help whatsoever, they would have been there forever, because your teammate can't help you, right? And who was it? It was Hung that just let everybody do it. And nobody, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody asked. She was like, oh, I figured it out. I'll stay behind and tell them. Am I right in saying that? That she was just like, we should help them because we're allies. Nobody asked. I think they could have just gotten out of there. No, and I'm not saying that they did this to themselves, but they did this to themselves.
Well, I'll say it. They did that to themselves. And as strong a team as they are, do you think this might be their Achilles heel?
I do, but it seems like they're catching on. They're learning from their mistakes, and they are. They
No,
made a pact. They were
no, they're not.
by the end of the second episode, they said we need to lighten up on the allyship because we're the ones pulling all the weight, and especially emphasis on Gary and D'Angelo, who are benefiting from the allyship, but they're not really giving anything to it. And so they were like, we need to just watch ourselves a little bit more. They're at least aware of it. I think that's progress.
I don't think that. Yeah, they're over it though. I think it's going to continue to haunt them, and I think it's their Achilles heel. And I
If
think
their
it's
weakness
exactly
is
what Tom
anything, it's
said.
that. But I think that
Exactly what Tom said.
they're getting better about it.
It's exactly what Tom said in the beginning when he was ranking them, and he said that he ranked them wherever he ranked them because they're parents and they want to be seen as parents on television, and they want to be the diplomatic people, and they want
Yeah.
to help others, and they want to do that. And that's exactly what happened in this episode. And then it happened in the next episode.
Yeah.
And even though they say that they're going to get over it, there's no way that they're just going to be done with it.
I agree. But if it is in your nature to be helpful, sometimes it's a little hard to break a habit like that when you're not used to being this competitive. That's
So
all I'm saying.
Well, but
Is that they're
before you
finally
just
aware
said
of
that
it.
they weren't.
What?
You just said that they're over it and they've moved on and they learned from it. And now you're saying that they haven't learned from it because they're still.
I think they have learned from it, but I think it takes a minute to kind of break a habit like that. That's all. That's all.
I mean, but isn't that the danger of the alliances? Right. There is
5 teams. That's a lot.
And there's an obvious advantage of, okay, let us 5 work together while there's 10 teams or 9 teams or even 8 teams. And we can work together and try to gradually eliminate people so we can move further and travel more. But you get to that point where, do I help them? Do I not? Is this helping me or is this hurting me? And I think we're there. Are we there?
Where it's hurting them?
Where they're at that crossroads of.
Oh yeah. Oh, crossroads. Oh, speaking of crossroads. Yes. I agree. I think this is the point. And so one thing that I will say is there's one team that's in there that's not getting involved. Well, yeah, there's not getting involved with anybody. And to me, that's Riley and Madison. They're just gonna scoot, not making enemies with anybody.
Aren't they a part of that five team alliance?
Yes, they are, but they are the only team that hasn't really gotten involved with anybody else.
Because they're so far ahead.
Yeah, yeah, but nothing can hurt them. I think. I think like Will and James. I think yelling out. I think that hurt. You know, I think that's showing like they're stepping up. And if you could scoot without having people hate you, they're just gonna keep going to the end.
Yeah.
But they're
Smart.
my number one.
I have to agree with you, Josh. It seems like Riley and Madison, they're in it, but they're not using it, but they don't really need it. And then there's Ishwar and Aparna who are kind of on the outs of it and not really using it. But then there's Hung and Chi who are kind of the ones with
Doing
that
both.
at the center with them and Gary and D'Angelo, and it's kind of one-sided. And as much as I love my man D'Angelo and Gary, I feel like they are definitely relying on it maybe a little too much from what we can see. And it seems like D'Angelo is almost defaulting to it,
Yeah.
especially in the roadblock from the first episode the other night. Try to do it yourself. Talk to them. There's no harm in actually doing it. There is that counter argument that, hey, ask Hung. Then it's on her to say yes or no or give you the answer or not. And if she's a really awesome, kind person, and she'll help you out and save you a couple 50 flight trips up the stairs, then what harm is there? And at the end of the day, it seemed like she was only really mad about it because they upstaged her or whatever you want up on this.
Hung and Chi couldn't get a taxi. If they hadn't stuck around to tell them that, they wouldn't. Gary and D'Angelo and all the other teams just like flew out of there. They got taxis easily. And I think she was frustrated because it wasn't as easy for them to leave. They got stuck trying to get a taxi. And then she had time to think about what she had done. And that's when she got frustrated, is when she sat there, watched all the other teams leave because of the information she gave them. Then she was like, darn.
Yeah. Although I'd like to make a point. I think that when we look at it, Hung and Chi are still in the race, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though they were nice, they're still in the race. And you know who wasn't nice? Leo, when he didn't tell Halen and Kaylee about the steps going up. And you know what happened? They bit that bit him in the butt.
I also feel that Hung and Chi are the most normal people that are up at the top. They're not pro athletes. They're not former pro athletes. They're everyday people, and they're up against these Goliaths, these professional athletes. I have never met Riley and Madison. Shout out to them. Hope to meet them. But I'm sure that they are these towering presence. They're, I think, 6'4" and 6'3" or whatever they are. And, you know, they're very personable and they're professional athletes. They're from Hawaii. Like you can just see it through the screen, how electric their personalities are. And then you got Gary and D'Angelo, 6'6". D'Angelo's doing backflips at the mat. Like, these are not your everyday normal people. And I could see how easy it would be to want to ally with them, but then also help them so that you're in their good graces and at the last minute, maybe make your move to kind of break off of that and try to beat them. Do they need to do that? No, they're a strong team too, Hung and Chi, but I just feel like there is a piece of it that's them being intimidated just by the nature of who they are and the professional athlete piece of it. And I don't know, they got to cut ties at some point with that if they're going to really distance themselves.
Or use it to their advantage. I mean, they aren't the most physical, and they noted that. But if you can give your brains to them or to a select few, those people will help keep you afloat.
The truth, I mean, that's the benefit of the alliance. Yeah, and I spoke to Victoria and Michelle, and I asked them about the alliances, and you know, they didn't really get involved in one. And I think that if they could go back, they would make that choice to get involved with some other team, because even though they felt good in the race they were running, there is some benefits to it.
Mm-hmm.
even if small, we've seen the small difference can make a really big difference. So from there, we went to the detour, which was beer yoga, or the German song, I'll call it.
Clucking.
What was it called?
I don't know. It was German clucking.
Yeah. Really interesting detour. Again, seemed kind of fun. Which one do you guys go with and why?
The beer yoga.
Yeah.
That was an easy agreement for us.
Is it the beer? Is it the yoga? Is it?
I'm tone deaf.
I didn't want to say it, but I think both of our strengths lie more in the beer yoga challenge. I think we both like beer, and we both have well, I have a pretty good memory, and I know that Josh would have supported me. No,
I could remember physical stuff.
that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, but
Oh.
I think because it's 4 different like cycles and patterns, it's like if you move your body, you can train your mind into knowing what it's supposed to do, and then it's just muscle movement is what that challenge is. After you have it down, I think we would have been fine at it.
It seemed kind of fun too. I had to ask Nicole. I said, "Is this a real thing, or is this some gimmick?" And she said it's a real thing.
I looked it up. Yeah. Might be
Is it
getting
just a German thing, or is it a everywhere thing?
So breweries host yoga teachers to come in and do it at their brewery, and you spend like $25 and do an hour's worth of yoga and get a free pint.
So you're not sipping it and going.
No, I bet you are. I bet you are.
I think by the end of your yoga session, you've drank the whole thing. Also, why would you go to Germany and not drink beer?
It's true. Again, I like the cultural weaving it all together. That was
Exactly.
kind of cool. I think Nicole and I would have done that. She's really into yoga. I really like yoga too. I like beer. I actually taught Josh yoga. True story.
True story.
And the German song just seems so hard.
Mm-hmm.
It seems so hard. It was fun. I enjoyed watching Will and James and Ishwar and Aparna and Alana and Leo and Kaylin and Haley do that challenge.
Yeah.
But, oh gosh, it's hard enough singing, but you're learning another language in what, 5 minutes? And then you're dressed as a chicken to boot. I don't know that. At some point, that's one of those, just pull the cord and just pull the pin, throw that grenade. We're going to look ridiculous right now. And I really would have liked to have seen people like Cody and Nathan do that one.
That would have been good. Josh and I also said while that was happening, it was like, at some point you just have to like, it's all personality and it's all performance. So like, even if not all of your pronunciations are right, even if you're a little off tune, if you sell it, they're going to give you your clue. That's what those are. And so all of those teams, I think, knew that. And so they just went for it. And they probably did get 90% of the words right, but they all sold it. They were good on performing it. So
Josh, was there more of a defined answer? I know you've mentioned that before, that you like this is the one defined answer, this is the one way to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, they're kind of both walking the line of that, or was there one that was more?
They're both walking the line, but I think the singing was just way too not like right. Like you have to get the poses right. That's it. But if you have to sing all of these notes, there's too much room for error. Although what I did think that was kind of nice is I don't think anybody actually completed it. They allowed it if you like put emphasis into it and made it exciting. So if that's the case, then I think it becomes a little bit of a different story. However, I still would have done the beer yoga.
It's almost like they both were kind of time challenges. They both were going to take whatever it was, let's say 40 minutes to learn and then perform. And you have to keep it that way. You can't have one be an hour and 2 hours or whatever, and one could be done in 20 minutes. So
yeah,
it was cool. I thought it was a good little cultural sense of Germany, you get the whole beer, the whole song language piece. I thought that was really cool. We get to the pit stop of the first episode. After the roadblock, after the detour, the Alliance helps the Alliance. Gary and D'Angelo kind of pull away when they get the cab. They roll into the pit stop, team number 1. Tip of the cap to my guys. Let me just take a moment here. Good job. As I'm getting a double eye roll. Really proud of them. They stepped up. They showed their ability to get to the mat first. You got to do that.
Their alliance and then didn't give anything back.
Listen, D'Angelo's a great athlete, but he needs his linemen to block for him. Otherwise, he's not getting in the end zone, right? So they win $7,500 each. And the bigger thing I think they won is the sense of finishing first. How important do you guys think it is for a team to at least one time finish first if they're really going to make a run at winning the whole thing? Or does it not matter?
Josh.
It doesn't matter. You just don't come in last. That's the rules of the game. Just don't come in last.
I think it's a good confidence booster for people. It really seems to light a fire under you. If you win, you are on a winner's high. And that really seems to drive people in a way that coming in 5th or 6th does not. I think if you know the game, you know that coming in last is the only thing that you can't do. But for some people, being first is like really what they need. So I think it depends on the team.
I think for Gary and D'Angelo, they needed it.
I think for athletes, it's a huge deal. I think for people like more intellectual people that aren't athletes, Ishwara, Aparna, Alana, and Leo, it'd be great, but they know that they're still in it and they're going to compete the same way, even if they come in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. They're not going to change the way they play. But I think for people, or like Kelly and Levant, I think if they would have come in first on the 1st or 2nd leg.
As a coach, as an educator, whatever, I feel as though whatever I want people to do, whether it's my students or my players, whatever I want them to do or whatever I ask them what they want to do, and then they say it, I feel it is important for them to actually practice doing it. Whether it's blocking a punt or scoring a touchdown, actually running into the end zone, or smashing the birdie for a point, or highlighting text, during a lesson or whatever it is. I think it's important for you to actually practice that specific skill. And so I think for anybody running the race to get team number 1, a first place, yeah, the prize is great. And, you'll take $7,500 a piece every single time. But I think it's a confidence thing, but I also think it's okay, we got one under our belt. We can do this for the whole thing. So going down the line, 2nd place, Riley and Madison. Again, they're just no flaws, seemingly. Hung and Chi kind of see a little bit of their Achilles heel, like we talked about earlier. Will and James, right in the middle of the pack. Ishwar and Aparna, Alana and Leo. And then Kaylin and Haley. They have 9 lives maybe in this game. I'm not sure, but they were significantly behind. It seemed the whole leg. They couldn't, I forget who was on the roadblock walking down the side of the building, just could not figure it out and seemingly did it, I don't know, at least 5 times it seemed, but they get another life in the game. So this is now their 3rd life in the game on another non-elimination.
Ridiculous.
I was so mad.
Me too.
Why? Why does that make you so mad? Is it because they have had it already, or is it because of just them in general?
No, turn around and look at my power rankings. It would benefit me the most for them to be out next.
Yes, Lizzy has.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And there's other teams that are growing on me that I would like to see win. Kaylin and Haley are not that team. Sorry if they ever listen to this. I apologize, but they should have been out. They should have gone home.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see the underdogs stay in it, but how many times do you not go home when you should be going home? I think that they are another one of those teams that's not in the Fab 5, And so it's like they're not as exciting to watch, and they're really not, I don't think, one of the stronger teams on right now. And it's like that just like Gary said, or get just like Gary said, or somebody said, like they're the fly that you try to step on, but it sinks in between the cracks every single time.
I think people like non-eliminations because you might have a team that you're rooting for and then they get a second chance. And the non-eliminations are good when that team rises above and then surpasses it, and then they're back in the game and they're not last. But if they're last again, there's a reason for that. Do you know what I mean? So
It's true.
it was infuriating that they were not eliminated by the end of the second episode.
We move on to the 7th episode, where they start off flying to Kazakhstan to hang out with Borat. No, but to go to Kazakhstan or Kazakhstan,
Kazakhstan, I think.
Kazakhstan, and they started with an all aboard, so everybody's evened up again. Do you think that's planned, or it just kind of works out that way because of the nature of going to that country?
Josh?
Absolutely planned. I think it's absolutely planned. I think it's more exciting when all the teams are closer. It also allows you to start each leg like fresh, which is the thing I don't like, but I do think that that's good for like everything about the show. If there's a team that's so far behind, then you're like, I'm going to watch them. But it allows for more drama to happen when everybody is together at all times.
And also, when you're starting off of a leg fresh, they've all got that 12-hour rest period. And so it no longer makes sense to, oh, well, I guess, because they used to do the, if you get in at 3:30 p.m., you leave at 3:30 a.m., right? It doesn't, do they really?
Yeah.
Well, so then I guess this train must have been the only one within the time frame when everybody was leaving.
Yeah, or
So
they
I guess,
allow you to take one train.
or yeah, exactly.
But if let's say you're more than 12 hours behind, then that makes the end of the episode not exciting either.
Yeah.
Because you know who's going to come out, you know who's going to lose, and then you're like, well, I don't really need to watch this episode because I know that they're going to be gone. Yeah. But what I do like is when there's a team in the back, and like they're clearly in the back of the pack. Like I do like watching them. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like I like being able to be like, ooh, I'm starting to feel like Gary and D'Angelo are not going to be hanging in much longer. I like that sense rather than just like every week a total blindside of who's going to come, who's going to lose.
Your slow burn theory.
Yeah.
And you would think that going into this episode, even though they catch everybody up and the all aboard, whatever, you would think that the slow burn was on Kaylin and Haley. But we'll get to that. But
at that point in time, it was.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And a little bit more of a burn coming to start the episode was with the alliance, right? The team, the 5-team alliance, Hung and Chi, Will and James, Riley and Madison, Gary D'Angelo, Ishwar and Aparna. Early in the episode, I think Hung is reflecting on the mistake she made and helping D'Angelo, and then that turning into, as Phil lightly put, a $15,000 mistake, because that helped D'Angelo and Gary get to the mat first. But they make it kind of clear, Hung and Chi, that the alliance with Will and James, Riley and Madison is becoming stronger and what they want to see happen going further. And Gary and D'Angelo and Ishwar and Aparna are kind of secondary to that. How do you break the alliance? Do you just have to make the decision, or do you have to wait and see until the moment when you're asked the next question, the next favor? How do you go about actually breaking the alliance if you're Hung and Chi?
I don't think you do. I don't think you break it, but I just don't think you help it.
Yeah, I think
Riley and Madison,
too.
You don't have to go back and tell Will and James that they throw pies at you. You just kind of move on and you get there. Now, like you were saying, if somebody asks, you probably should answer them. But I think it's very easy to not help.
Yeah.
Just don't hurt.
I agree. I think it's just slowly not being present to help If you're not around, nobody can ask you for help. So it's just like, yes, you're in it, but if you're not actively participating in it and you just kind of like start edging away, people can't get mad at you because you're on a race, but you're not staying and wasting time to help people. So, then the other thing would be is if you sit down and say, hey, we're breaking this alliance, which nobody wants to do because that would hurt them more than anything. That gets you yielded, that gets you U-turned, that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So I think just kind of quietly not helping is the way to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ultimately, you don't want to necessarily make an enemy, especially out of pro athletes who could, if you're all caught up, completely outrun you and get to the yield first and then make you wait. And
right. Because at the end of the day, it's everybody's logic is the same. It's always, it's a race. So the alliance will go as far as it will go. But at the end of the day, $1 million is on the line. So nobody can ever really get mad at you for doing anything that you're going to do.
There was an alliance broken too. There was an alliance broken this episode.
There was.
And Haley did not stand up or did not yield Alana and Leo.
I think they were bullied into that, having everybody yell at them. If they would have decided on their own, we saw what would have happened. They wouldn't have done it. But everybody else.
So do you think it was a bad move on their part or a good move? Because I think they would have went home if they didn't use the yield.
I think for their sake, it was a good move because they're still in the race. I think for my sake, my power rankings are fucked because they're still in the race.
Oh my God. Somebody's bitter. Third place, second week in a row.
Josh, enough. Oh, rub it in, why don't you?
You're so close to.
I know.
You're closer to Nicole than you are to first place.
Josh, stop.
I hope that Hung and Chi don't go out.
I thought I was over this, and you're bringing it back up. I had this buried 24 hours ago. Please don't rip off the Band-Aid.
Let's start with the speed bump, right? Kaylin and Haley come in last. It's a non-elimination. So they have to perform the speed bump in Kazakhstan. They get dropped off and they have to put on these prosthetic beards. They have to learn how to do it. They got to paint glue on their face, and then they got to wear these beards for pretty much the rest of I think they wore it for the entire episode.
I don't think they had to do that. I think they chose to do that.
I think it's a smart move, no?
It might have kept them warm.
I think it keeps you warm. I think it also puts you in good graces with Riley and Madison, right? As we saw, the beards themselves. No?
Josh called it flirtation when they showed Riley and Madison their beards. It was a fleeting moment, and then they went on to build their yurt.
Listen, you take any advantage you can get. If you're not in some alliance.
Oh, yeah.
And you can flirt and via being a bearded lady, I mean, you got to take whatever you can get to get ahead here, folks. We get to the detour, which was the Kazakhstan movie set, kind of their version of a Hollywood film set, I guess. The Great Khan Spy or the Knockout Guy. So on the Great Khan Spy, you had to dress up, all these elaborate costumes, all these people, these actors, and you had to watch them execute a battle scene. Or you could have done the Knockout Guy, which was kind of being a stunt double within a Kazakhstan movie where you're fighting with swords, you're using a shield, you're jumping off of something into a pile of hay. They both seem pretty cool, I thought, from just as a viewer. But I have a clear-cut thing that I would have chosen. What were your thoughts on what to choose there, the spy or the Knockout Guy?
I think we said the Knockout Guy, right?
Yeah, I would have rather done
I
that.
don't know.
I did not think that the I Spy would be that difficult, though. It was much more difficult than I expected.
But it goes back to what Josh usually says, where it's like the counting one, you could just do that forever because you don't actually know what you're looking for. It's like after you hear what the questions are, you have a better idea. But like what Leo and Alana got hung up on, it's like the technicalities of the little things. It's like you could have been there forever, and there's so much to see. But with Knockout Guy, it's like right foot kick, hold your shield up. It's like there are specific things that you do. You knock it off the checklist, and then you're done.
Both have their reasons why you'd want to do both. But I agree. The Knockout Guy, it's defined. You have to do this step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You learn it, you do it, and then you move along. And it seemed as though that took a lot less time for Riley Madison, Ishwar Aparna, Gary D'Angelo, Will and James to complete that versus the struggles that we saw Hung and Chi and Alana and Leo have. And I feel like that could be, I know we talked earlier about Hung and Chi's weakness. I don't know if that's necessarily a weakness, but I would say that a choice like that, choosing the spy versus the knockout guy and the delay and messing it up and having to watch it again and they all have to reset. And that time delay could be the difference between last place and staying in the race. And we learned as we did, it was pretty much the case for Alana and Leo. Why do you think Alana and Leo had so much trouble with that?
They were thinking too much. They were being too analytical and then beating themselves up for it. The spears thing, they were counting every single one, even though some of them had flags, but you don't fight with a flag, so does that spear count? And I think they just got in their own heads too much.
I agree. I think I wrote down overthinking. They're the nerds. They're very analytical. They're really smart, but they probably made the wrong choice there. Not just because they struggled, but you would think that their strength of their intelligence would help them, but in fact, it seemed to hurt them. So from there, we come up to the second clue in the village. I thought that was a really cool moment. I feel like that's another one of those things that they actually got to take a look and be like, we are in Kazakhstan right now. There's some guy over there with a giant bird on his arm, and this woman's boiling a bunch of lamb heads, and there's camels all over the place. And I don't know. I like those moments on the race where they're kind of in these very, very remote areas, and you get a real sense of, for lack of a better way of putting it, small town, village, native people life. So when they get there, they have to get to this camel. They have to assemble the inside of the yurt. What did you guys think of that challenge?
I think it was just like the truck challenge. It seems pretty straightforward. And then as you go, there's always one little thing that if you really pay attention, you'll catch. But if you're moving too fast or if you're too distracted, then you won't. And everybody did get it. I don't think anybody helped anybody else, right? As far as telling them where the skulls were or how to get them. I think everybody kind of stumbled upon that. Wait, who? I can't remember.
There was one, Josh. You want to?
Hung and Chi.
Hung and Chi.
Did they help? I can't remember. Did they help someone?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gary and Angelo? You're both saying different things. I can't.
Oh yeah. Remember Gary, they were running next to Hung and Chi, and Gary turned to them and said something about, what do we need? Or do we need a head? And she said, yeah, over there. And she pointed to where the lamb head was.
Oh, and then she ran off and she was like, why did I say that?
Yeah, that's exactly what she said.
I remember. That's right.
So why does she do that? Why does she help them? What is wrong?
She hasn't learned. That's why.
She's too nice. Too motherly.
I think, Hung, if you're listening, I'm sure you're probably the most straight and narrow person. You're probably the best mom, the nice nicest neighbor you could ever. I bet you she doesn't lie to anybody for any reason in her life. Why would she, or deceive anybody? So all Gary's got to do is say, hey, what do we got to do? And she can't not just tell the truth there. That's kind of my take. I don't know. Am I way off?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right.
This was different though because they asked. I think the other one, she literally did not leave when she could have, so that she could let other people know. Like, that's too much. And then didn't she wait for a third team?
She's getting better.
Yeah, getting better by only letting one team know.
Riley and Madison.
Two teams, right?
Well, in immediately recognizing the mistake, the second that she said it, she was like, "God, I shouldn't have done that." You know what I mean? So that's what gives me hope that they won't do it next time. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying that she's over it. I amend what I said earlier, Josh.
Oh, wow.
But I think, you know, in the next couple episodes, they'll be on their guard more. And there's less teams, so of course the competition's getting more stiff. We talked about this. We don't need to talk about it again.
Then they're in the cab and Chi is pissed, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Hung turns around and she shows her. We get a little glimpse into their kind of dynamic a little bit, and she says, Chi, you have 90 seconds to be angry, and then we're going to get over it. Okay, Josh, if Lizzy gives away a clue to a professional athlete that you're competing with, and then tells you have, because you're obviously upset. Why would you do that? You just made the mistake. You made it again. And she tells you have 90 seconds to be angry. How would you feel?
I actually think it's plausible that I would have done that to Lizzy if because I feel like I would give the clue away, and then I would also tell her that she only has 90 seconds to be upset.
What is cracking me up is that we had this exact conversation last night when we were watching this. Because it's very much in both of our natures to like section out when we're going to have a lot of feelings and then put a timestamp on when we'll be done with our feelings. And so it was like, I don't know, it was just very funny because it was very easy for us to see us in that situation.
I am much easier. I am more like the person that would give it away and then be over it. And then be like, Lizzy, you have to get over it. Just get over it. And she would be like, yeah, but what the fuck? And so, yeah, it is a glimpse maybe into our future.
So, Lizzy, would you have handled it as well as Chi did then? Because I thought he handled it pretty well.
She handled it by not saying anything. He was like, what? Why'd you do that? And she was like, you have 90 seconds to be upset. I feel like he didn't say very much. Am I remembering that incorrectly?
He said, actually, I'm over it. And she's like, no, you're not. You're not over it. You have 90 seconds.
Well, yeah, I would have said the same thing just to move on. I would have said, I'm over it. Josh would have called me out on it, and then I would have been quiet. That's exactly what would have happened.
Exactly what would have happened, yeah.
I think I learned from that moment because I definitely wouldn't have handled it as well as you guys are displaying. I would not have handled it as well as Chi did. I wouldn't have handled it as well as Hung did, even her own mistake, and then having to communicate to her husband about it. I think Nicole and I it wouldn't have went that well, is what I'll say. You know, whether we would have ever done that, I don't know if either of us would have really done that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's a nice little lesson to learn as a newly married guy, to communicate it, have your feelings. Here we go. Let's move forward now. I might have to try that. So thank you. Shout out to Hung and Chi there. Moving forward, the big thing that happens after Hung and Chi's situation is Will and James, our super fans. They are itching to make another move. And then at the Assembling the Yurts challenge, the yield is there and Will and James come out of their yurt. They say to the blondies, as they put it, to yield Leo and Alana. Should Will and James have stuck their nose into the business of the bottom two and encouraged Kaylin and Haley to yield and pretty much knock out Alana and Leo.
Yeah.
There's a-
Yes, because you always use the yield when you're going to send somebody home. And so it was a good move for Kaylin and Haley. And who's the only enemy of Will and James? Alana and Leo. Get rid of them. We want them gone. We don't want them here. Of course they would tell them to do that. I think it made perfect sense.
I thought it was a great move.
I wouldn't have done it, but I think for all the reasons that Josh said, it made sense as a move on their part.
I totally agree. I think it was brilliant, and it keeps the blood off of anyone's hands because you knock them out, and you kind of controlled someone else's yield, right? So I don't know if there is another yield. There might be one more, and so there's only so many opportunities, and it seemed like the blondes needed that encouragement. They needed somebody to kind of step in and say, hey, yield them, stay in the race, knock them out. Hello. And from what I could tell in the interviews I've done, it doesn't seem like many people are as seasoned and as experienced and knowledgeable about strategies in these little windows. Because that's what it is. They're in there trying to assemble and finish the challenge. Here come Kaylin and Haley. They see them. They jump out. They say, hey, here's how you stay in the race, and you're going to hook us up too. And boom, they kind of win that moment. I thought it was really brilliant. How do you like going into some remote village in Kazakhstan and seeing two women boiling a gigantic vat of lamb heads, and then you got to go and retrieve one?
I think it's pretty smart. I think that if everything was as straightforward as put all this stuff up, here's every single one of your supplies, go decorate the house, it wouldn't be much of a challenge. But if there's one little aspect of it that makes you think a little bit harder, that's a good challenge.
I think it should have been harder. There was literally nothing around them besides the two ladies boiling a head. It's like, obviously there's going to be something there. And you even saw, I think when Hung and Chi went, or when somebody went in the beginning, or Riley and Madison, or I don't remember, but they were like, how do you be discreet about it? You can't be discreet because it's literally like in the middle of the only thing there. So I wish there was a way to be more discreet about it.
So you think it should have been harder?
Yes, it was too easy. Every team who got there on time left in that order. Actually, maybe Aparna and Ishwar-ish. I don't remember what time they got there.
Yeah, I don't have the exact thing written down, but I think that they were lagging a little bit.
Yes.
Because they got out of there to the next clue at the meat market. Fifth was Kaylin and Haley, sixth was Ishwar and Aparna, and seventh was Leo and Alana. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of these other clues that just kind of take you to a place like the meat market? And the only real hurdle of it is they put it up on this little perch or this little balcony. I like that you can see the market and see a meat market in Kazakhstan, but it seems like you're there for 2 seconds and then that's it. There's no challenge. There's no real purpose other than to just kind of be in a market.
Agree to disagree, because I actually think it would have been good if there were two teams there at the same exact time. It would have been really exciting watching two teams, especially from like a bird's eye view, watching two teams like have to try to find their way to like both get up there. But it wasn't close. And so I think that's what made it not exciting.
I think that this isn't anything new. I think that the Amazing Race has been like just putting clue boxes at random landmarks since the beginning of the show. And I don't think it's gotten any harder. What I am confused by is the like extra thrown in challenge that seems to be in episodes now. That's just like route info. It's not a roadblock. It's not a detour, but there's another challenge in there in order for you to get where you're supposed to go. And that hasn't always been a thing.
That's kind of where I'm at too, is that you're in this meat market, make them eat something, make them eat some random Kazakhstan, I don't know, maybe the lamb head,
I agree.
something like that, that at least maybe somebody throws up. I don't know.
I was hoping.
From the meat market, we get the fifth clue, the pit stop at the First President's Park.
The first apple tree supposedly was planted there like 200 million years ago or something like that.
Okay, that's yeah.
So cool.
That's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, why not throw it in there? Why not have that as a landmark? Especially because in the previous leg, it seemed like they were just in some random street.
They were like in an alleyway or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the team eliminated was Leo and Alana.
Your next door neighbor friends. I don't know. I feel like they're like your typical next door neighbors.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
They're like, oh, like they're kind of fun, but they're a little weird. We kind of see them every once in a while.
Josh, that you're not the one interviewing these people.
Yeah, that's probably for the better. Although I do have some experience with Boston, but
Was it the right time? Was it too early? Was it too late? Was it just right for them? Power rankings aside, if you can, was it too late, too early, or just right for them to go out of the race?
I think like an episode or two too early, but in the same like 3 episode give or take.
I'll agree with that. I think Kaylin and Haley should have gone home first.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't have been upset if Alana and Leo were next.
And then like Aparna Ishwar, Gary D'Angelo. That's what it's.
Whatever the rest of my list says in that order should happen.
But after seeing them go out last night, I had them in the good experience category. I had them 7th. So they were right on schedule as far as my rankings. They were the 15th to go out in my rankings. So it felt right, but if I was re-ranking them probably mid-season, I would have put them up into the sleeper category. I think they had a chance to win. You know, they were a strong team. They're smart. They knew they had some skills that they flashed, but it's interesting how their strengths seemed to bite them this episode and this leg of the race, that they just couldn't quite stop analyzing the stupid spears, and that lagged them behind, and that's what got them yielded. And then that was really kind of the final knockout punch, it seemed, for them and their hopes. First place team was Will and James. They won the Travelocity. Give it up to them. Travelocity trip to Vegas, 5 nights, the Venetian, the whole works. I thought that was pretty cool. And then Phil drops the bomb of the mega leg.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Crazy.
Tom, I screamed. I was so excited. I cannot wait.
What is so exciting about it? Is it the length? Is it the more challenge? What is it?
It's new. It's something we haven't seen before. It's not a detour. It's not a yield. It's not a U-turn. It's not a double U-turn. What is a mega leg? Is it more of the Amazing Race? A 2-hour episode was a minimum for me. What does this mean? You know?
Right. And how are they going to jam pack it all into 2 hours?
Oh, can't wait to see.
I think what they struck gold having Will and James be the first place team before the mega leg, because you know their theatrics take over and they do the whole like mega leg thing, and that really had me laughing hard, because I don't think anybody else would have quite been so animated in that way, and I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
I feel like a mega leg is gonna be really physically challenging. So I wonder how that's gonna play into it. Lizzy?
I wonder if it is a leg where you don't get to have your 12 hours of sleep or your 12-hour break.
Yeah, they said that it was gonna be 2 sets of 2. So I think it's gonna be like 2 detours, 2 roadblocks.
All in one.
Or you can even get there. Yeah, it's gonna be exhausting.
Yeah.
2 U-turns. Do we think the double U-turn comes back? I think so.
The double U-turn solid.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Looking forward to it. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thanks for
Looking
having
forward to
us.
it.
Thanks everyone for joining and listening and watching. And we'll see you next time here on the ReRACEables podcast. Appreciate it.